y'all, and this is 012 Boku, being myself because I'm a little under the weather today, and...
Jerk the Jackass, and I don't know, you're kind of looking a little late 90s DDP there. You know, with the shorter hair, the wife beater. Hey, we gonna go out and rescue Marion from the gang?
Self-high-five!
Disclaimer! Yeah, anybody who remembers that game, high five. You got good taste.
Yep. Not only that, anyone who still remembers Diamond Dallas Page, you have good taste too, because I can see where you see that, though. People have said I've looked like DDP before, so it makes sense in some ways, I guess. But yes, we are talking about today's film, which I do not own. We saw it on Netflix. It was one of Simonese choice, as I like to call these. It was The Men Who Stare at Goats. I revisited it, and Jarek saw it for the first time. I believe so, right? Was that the first time you saw it?
Yeah, I stared at the movie about the men who stare at the goats.
Yeah, which honestly was only one scene, so... but like, honestly enough, it was a good movie. I will say, good movie, very obscure. We won't get into ratings. We'll probably save that for our next go-around when we review these again, give you the ratings and what people thought. And I can tell you, Jerk, since I went to Rotten Tomatoes, oh, man. You know, I thought the movie was pretty good, but, man, Rotten Tomatoes, though, and critics...
Well, you know, I think they didn't take a hard enough stance on Ronald Reagan for their liking.
Well, true. And, well, believe it or not, even though, I know, like I said, this is based on stuff that actually happened, plus, Simon, he gave me a whole ton of information about how this was true. A lot of people still believe this is false. And I'm like, no, I remember some of this stuff that took place where Bob Wilton and Lynn Cassidy were that actually really did happen. So again, everything may not be true, guys, but it is based on a true story because the government really was doing this type of research at the time.
I mean, you have to remember, people, for the longest time, NASA's been using Lego building blocks to test whether or not the actual physical dimensions of the satellites and shit they'll build will hold up.
Which,
yeah,
well...
Lego.
Well, again, an interlocking brick building system, which when you think about it, you can build anything with a Lego, so why not? Works for satellites, ships, you name it. They are a model, essentially.
I made a working elevator shaft for a medieval castle out of just the basic bricks. I wasn't even using the Technics at the time.
Well, see, there you go. And either way, so, you know, I mean, it didn't shock me because I will say, folks, it is a very obscure movie. Obscure movie, definitely a dark comedy type of movie. There were some serious moments, but it was more about funny haha. Not everybody agrees with me on this, but if you want a true sort of dark comedy drama, again, you don't have to agree with me on it. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. Fargo.
Actually, I've got Fargo.
Oh, I do too. I love that movie. Which Simony for one. Sorry to say the Simony for one. And I've talked with a lot of people. They don't like it because they think they just say it's stupid. And I'm like, I can see that, but I actually liked what the movie represented and what it was about. And I liked how, you know, for as funny as that movie was, it got really dark in the undertones. But this one, since we don't want to talk about Fargo, we will get to Fargo, though, believe me. For this one, it was more of darkly lighthearted because, you know, we're worthy of the rated R rating, you know, very many adult themes, language, lots of weird hippie shit, and basically that's how you can go into it, because it follows reporter Bob Wilton, who's played by Ewan McGregor, who essentially gets a story from his editor saying, you know, I want you to check out this guy, you know, who apparently could kill things with his mind. So, you know, Bob Wilton goes there. He meets with the man, Gus Lacey, played by Stephen Root, and apparently Lacey tells him about the story. Bob Wilton doesn't think anything of it, just thinks he's crazy, and then he shows him the video of the hamster, not killing the hamster, because the mother doesn't want him to show that, because I guess, you know, she probably like, you killed the hamster, how could you? And, you know, but it's like, no, to show the one where you have the hamster turn over, and the hamster's like, you know, doing this sort of thing, and then it's like, and then it's like, and then it gets back up. So it's like, you know, he believes it a little bit, but then several years pass, or not several years, several months pass. his friend and editor at his job starts dating his wife, and then he gets fed up and think, what can I do? I'm gonna go to Iraq for a story.
Yeah, that's always the best way to handle a breakup, Try to prove you're a man by going into the military. Hey, worked for a lot of Vietnam vets. Oh, wait, it didn't. Never mind. But yeah, I mean, if you think this idea is kind of stupid, this is the same generation that gave us Taking Advice on How to Raise Your Kids from Dr. Seuss and Dr. Oz. This is the same group of assholes who gave us, what was the name? C. Everett Koop, telling us that red meat, eggs, and alcohol are the 3 most dangerous things you can put in your body. Years later, we find out alcohol is actually good for your heart in moderation. Fucking eggs are actually really good for you, again in moderation, and hey, it's not like the French eat massive buttloads of both eggs and wine. And meat, well, let's just say there's a reason why vegetarians look so skinny and sickly all the time.
Yeah, well, it's like, hey, to each their own, not condoning one fact or another, Jarek. Again, Jarek is very outspoken, as am I, so hey, but either way, yes, that is true. It's how, people can believe in certain things. And, Bob Wilton as a character was too. He thought it was completely ridiculous. When he's in Iraq, he's getting ready to go out. He meets a man by the name of Lynn Cassidy. Name's familiar because Gus Lacey mentioned Lynn Cassidy, saying he was the best in their troop. And Lynn Cassidy is played by George Clooney, who, is this big sort of goofus guy who says he has Crohn's disease, but then he's later dying of cancer because a rival in this movie gave him the Denmark, the death touch, or Denmark, however you say it, but the death touch, and that caused his cancer. But either way, he's thinking, Bob Wilton is a complete poof, I'm not going to tell this guy anything about our operation, but then he sees you knew the name of the jerk, the eye thing.
The illuminated eye, the Eye of Illumination. The one on the dollar bill.
Yeah.
The same one that's worshipped by the Illuminati. That's supposedly also based on the Eye of Truth of Horus from Egyptian mythology, and also shows up in Freemasonry imagery. So
Absolutely. If we do go darker, folks, I do apologize. I think the old light is about to possibly die, but we'll see here because it's doing a Britsy dance.
She's a flickering flame. If only somebody would come and kindle her, like a valiant knight who has slaughtered many of his own kind who have hollowed because they didn't praise hard enough.
The good thing is we got plenty of light bulbs to replace, so yeah, I'm not too worried. But, however, with that, Bob Wilton's like, that's just a doodle, and he's like, well, no, it's not. This is something. So he goes into the talks about how he, got into this, and what happened is a man by the name. Oh yeah. Oh wait, no, I did say Lynn Cassidy. Yeah, if I forgot to say it, Lynn Cassidy is played by George Clooney, the main character of this movie. He then goes over how his commander-in-chief, his general, if you will, in the forces, by the name of Bill Django, who's played by Jeff Bridges, was wounded in Vietnam. There was a lone gunman shooting at all of them, and then, he wanted his men to shoot back. They shot either high or low because they didn't want to kill another human being. He gets shot, sort of right there near the abdomen. He goes down, and, it's like he has an outer body experience, and wish I could remember what she said. I should have wrote it down.
Oh, but I didn't. Their weakness is their strength, and it's like the Vietnamese woman that they were supposed to shoot at. He's seen in the image.
Yeah, and it's just like it reminds me. And I'm sorry if I didn't mean to be racist here, but it reminds me of try to bomb the harbor. Try to bomb the harbor. Or if you guys know Dreamcatcher, Arch Alpha Ish the Gay.
Well, and the way she appears, with that sun halo.
Yeah, well, yeah, the clouds.
I'm just expecting, the Teletubbies theme to kick off at any moment and have the 4 little Teletubbies with Kalashnikovs and AK-47s and fire bombs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But this experience that happened to Bill Django caused him to, go on a search to, make the army better and through hippie means. We see this montage where he tries naked hot tubs, falling up, doing trust falls off a roof, letting nature guide you. The whole hippie experience. He grows his hair out. He, grows his beard out. Does this, and believe it or not, he actually gets other men in the army to join him in the endeavor. One being, he was shown right at the beginning where he tries to run into a wall and he just hits his head. He's like, "Damn it!" But it's General Hopgood, played by Stephen Lang. Like, there's a part where he's telling the generals about, like, we can be all we can be and be better, and all the hippie movement stuff. And then, like, he gives him the fire and he has it in hand and he's like,
yeah, if you've ever done those really gay, trippy, like, team building exercises when you're in, like, an office building, where you do the walk on the hot coals with your bare feet, or fall backwards, trust me, I'll catch, all that stuff. Or if you've ever been on those vision quests as a kid, they take all the problem kids, they take them to one of those camps, you do a bunch of that old quote-unquote Indian stuff to, like, find yourself, and it's kind of like that. And the sad thing is, I mean, it was the 70s, it was drugs, disco, Jimmy Carter telling us how to live. I mean, a lot of dumb shit makes you do weird things.
Yep. And also, like how he got you remember how he got Wayne Cassidy? He crashed some server. Do you remember what the server was he crashed?
Yeah, he was like, he was walking by it and all of the computers crashed and the guy's like, I just heard the servers crash. I was like, yeah, was that you? It's like, yes, sir. Good job. How'd you do it?
Yeah, and he's like, fantastic. And that's where Hopgood, got him into it. And Hopgood and a bunch of other men, started to believe in this. And then I guess Bill Django got Lynn Cassidy to dance because Lynn Cassidy hated dancing because his father, in a flashback of his own making, as he was dancing to this 50s song, his father comes by and throws a beer bottle at him and he's like, "Stop being so fucking queer!"
It's, God, it reminds me of like I can't remember the movie now, but yeah, I remember seeing a movie with my folks, one where like there was this kid, grew up in a poor Irish town, wanted to do ballet, and eventually he does, and like his dad, who's this old hardline conformist, worked at a coal mine. He sees the play, and his childhood friend is there, who's openly flaming homosexual, dressed up as a woman with her new husband, and it's like, son, the flop. And it's just, I forget the name of it. It's like Billy Elliot or something like that, but it's apparently based on a true story. Pretty good, but just remember, people, in Northern Ireland, there are usually consequences for that kind of behavior, and it usually involves a shillelagh and drunken assholes.
Was that Billy Elliot?
Yeah, I think so.
I need to get that movie. That's a good film.
It's a really good film. Got a good soundtrack too.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I've only seen it once. I need to see it again. But yeah, I mean, I can see where Jarek makes that distinction to it because, when you do that and you're sort of scared into doing something again, you never want to. But he eventually, does dance, and it's rather hilarious seeing all these soldiers dance, and, they're getting all into it doing, they call themselves Jedi warriors, where they do things and they hunt with the mind. Apparently they were able to track down high-end targets to either protect them or to tell them get out or to hunt down, huge targets. And the funny thing is, every good thing probably has a real-life antagonist or a made-up one. But again, if it's based off a true story, I wouldn't doubt if this guy was real too. Larry Hooper, who's played by Kevin Spacey, comes into the picture. He apparently bent a fork in several places that Hopgood saw. And Hopgood's like, "Did you do this? Did you bend that fork?" And that's what got him into the club. Hooper was just about, impressing the brass, getting ahead. He didn't like mostly everybody there. He was a jerk. When Gus Lacey gets married, he tells, Gus, "Good luck, Gus, it ain't gonna last." And, you had Lynn stand up for Gus, and then, Larry's just like, whatever, fuck off, and just goes away. And there's actually a part where Gus, Lynn, and Larry are actually trying to guess the object. Gus says it's a pencil, and then Larry pulling it up is like, "This is Maud." Larry's spirit guide, and it is a tin cup. And, like, so he's having it all up, and then Lynn just says, it's a man in a chair. You have Bill go into the thing, he takes out the photo, and it's Abraham Lincoln's statue, so in a way, a man in a chair. And, Gus and Bill are congratulating Lynn, and Larry just had it out for him since, and, trying mind-expanding drugs and all these terrible things, to a point where a man gets killed because, like, it was a new recruit, and Larry decides, well, I'm going to try out this new method, get him high at LSD, and flash a red light in his face.
Yeah. I mean, this was like after the what were those things called? MK Ultra experiments, which also involved LSD, and ironically, the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski was unknowingly a part of those experiments. So the government was very, very open to this shit, and you also have to remember that all of this takes place after World War II, when Hitler had a lot of success with very, shall we say, unconventional warfare methods. And unfortunately, we did get stuff like psychotropic medication, aka antidepressants, out of that.
Yeah,
we did have to offer amnesty to a lot of assholes, but hey, it happened.
Yeah, and as you can imagine from even Jarek just mentioning that, like, Larry's thing backfires. I think the guy's name was Tim Coots. He basically goes on a rampage where not a rampage, he basically has, I believe it's a Glock in his hand, and he's, walking along, just shooting it while naked, just shooting it straight ahead. Bill comes up, and Bill is cool as a cucumber, like, he's sort of smiling too, and he's like, Tim, give me the gun, and then sadly Tim pulls the gun on himself and kills himself, and that is what ends up ending Bill Django's whole mind thing, because you had the other generals wanting to take control of it.
And not only that, I believe they said he was like the son of a really influential, high-ranking member of the DoD.
Yeah, Tim Coots' father was a high-ranking member of the DoD. Yeah, that's who it was. Glenn Morshire plays a character, Major Jim Holtz. He was a guy who didn't fully believe in what Bill Django was doing, and thought of other ways to do it. So with him and Larry Hooper, they sort of undermined him. There was an inquiry trial. Bill Django said, or not Bill Django said, he'll say it in a minute, but they basically headhunted him into where, Lynn threw everybody under the bus, saying, Bill Django's been using drugs, sex with women, and, whores and mind-expanding things. And then it's like, all of a sudden, he's like, I did not use whores. Okay, the drugs and the mind-expanding stuff was real, but I did not use whores. And then Hopgood's like...
Well, and interestingly enough, you can actually hear more about like the LSD experiments we were doing, not just the MK Ultra ones in the 60s, from Joe Rogan's podcast. Very interesting episode. You're going to learn a lot of weird shit on that one.
Did not know that, so thank you for the info there, Jarek, as well. And as you can imagine, this sort of goes into what happens later on, because we learn as we go back to the present, because we sort of hopped around, it intercuts throughout the whole movie, but you have Lynn Cassidy being on this mission to find Bill, because he said Bill appeared into him into a dream to where, they wanted to stop Larry from, I guess, using the dark side, because that's what they said for any soldier in the, what do they call it, the New Earth Army?
Yeah.
For anyone who went bad in the New Earth Army, you were using the dark side of the Force.
Yeah, and apparently he really bought into this because they, towards the end they tried to like salvage the operation, so they wanted the new guys in charge wanted to see if he could like kill people from a distance with his mind, so they got a bunch of goats, and he stares at the goat, and of course he's so pissed off with Larry that I guess the goat got scared or something, and it overexerted his heart, and it's like, ooh, this guy does have the touch. He has the power.
Yeah, because see, that's what we don't know. Because Lynn claims he really did do something to kill that goat. Maybe the goat really did fall over from its own like fear, or maybe Lynn really did kill the thing. Because again, psychic powers are possible, and if you try to tap into it, the thing is, the way they were trying to tap into it was so ridiculous within this movie. It's just like, no wonder the army was trying to do this. And also, forgot to mention this. You have General Hopgood talking to one of his superiors saying, you know, the Russians got wind that we were using size. We have to be their size. So we can stop their side, so we can be the better side team.
Yeah,
so they're telling me that the Russians have a side. They heard us. We were doing a side. So we have to do a side.
If I remember, what he said was, we tried to trick the Russians by pretending we had a psyops operation, but they thought it was real. So they started making a psyops team. So now we have to make a psyops team to compete with their psyops team, so their psyops team doesn't beat ours. It's like, so wait a minute, we just tricked the Russians. We accidentally caused the Russians to start a side team because we tricked them into thinking we had one, and now we have to make one to compete with theirs? Yes, sir. And I was just looking at him, it's like, maybe they only pretended to be fooled by that just so they could trick us into wasting time and money on this.
Which again, very well could, because they were getting a lot of money from betting on them. Where does that probably come from? Taxpayers, baby. Us.
But hey, we got revenge by tricking them into going bankrupt over the Star Wars missile defense program, so it's all good.
Ooh. but either way, Lynn's on this mission, and he's with Bill. Bill started thinking he's a bit of a crackpot because along the way, Lynn crashes the car. They get captured by people who are going to sell them to terrorists, so they're wannabe terrorists wanting to sell them, and get picked up by Robert Patrick, who was what was his name? Because Todd Nixon. Todd Nixon, who is this guy who basically is an advertiser type of guy and a businessman who's with the high elite security team, picked them up, and he's like saying, we're gonna give them McDonald's, gonna give them all this American stuff, we'll make a lot of money and it's all tax free, so we'll make money. And the French wanted to do it first. Fuck the French.
And as crazy as that sounds, that actually was one of the big reasons we had that big long fuck fest over in the Middle East, is because we basically wanted to turn that shit into a tax-free fucking semi-America.
Yeah, pretty much, and look how well that turned out, eh?
Well, I mean, it's not like Dick Cheney has a good record for hitting what he aims for.
Hi-oh!
Oh, look at that, a 6-foot-tall quail in a business suit. Boom.
Yeah. Not trying to get too political here, guys, we promise. But either way, it's like, it goes into that. Then they also escape with the guy who was with them named Mahmoud. And Mahmoud helped them, give him a car. And then they go to the middle of the desert to where, ironically, their car gets hit by, what is it, an IED?
Yeah, improvised explosive device.
Yeah, it's so funny, cars run along.
But they make it to the safety of like whoever's running these guys' shenanigans, and gosh, would you look at that? It's an old friend.
Yep, it's Larry Hooper, and so they were right. So basically, the whole thing is to them to take down Larry Hooper, and they basically see what he's doing. Like, they actually prove what you guys heard on the news, which is the only thing that Bob Wilton said, that they ran with the story, that they were playing the I Love You music to prisoners of war, the Barney theme. And I actually did remember hearing that on TV, so that part is true, guys, and I know I saw that before I had seen this movie, so you can't say, oh, you probably just saw the movie and heard it. It's like, no, I remember that being an actual thing in the news, and I'm like, you freaking kidding me? That's real? We're doing that to prisoners of war? Why the hell are we doing that? Like, and oh yeah, there were subliminal messages and real songs, like, they wanted to use psychic powers to have attack bees. It was like,
well,
Larry's being more serious, but this stuff sounds ridiculous.
What's funny? 2 of those things actually made it into mainstream media. I told Boku about one of them, like the whole torturing people with the I Love You song. That was actually used in Saints Row Get Out of Hell, where you have to bust Dracula out of prison, and they're torturing him by forcing him to listen to that music, and all of his prison guards are furries. No joke, this actually happens. And then the second one, the killer attack bees. I swear to God, I am not making this up, but in the 90s, after Ben Reilly was the quote-unquote real Spider-Man and Peter Parker was the fake one, he became Spider-Man for a little bit, and they introduced a villain who had actually been around, I think, since the early 80s, but they hadn't used him since then. A literal Nazi scientist who tried to use bees as a weapon, but whatever mutagen he used caused him to gain like these crazy powers. They attacked him, they killed him, and then he basically became a living sentient swarm of Nazi bees called the Swarm. This is an actual Spider-Man villain that exists, and in one timeline he did kill Peter Parker, so whatever. But yeah, not the Nazi bees! Not the Nazi bees!
Pretty much. Where's Nick Cage? Exit stage right. But yeah, or you could say, hey, like the Doctor in Dead Rising, where he creates a bunch of mutated wasps and they cause about the zombie apocalypse. Or, But yeah, so basically they're there to stop him from doing all that. And of course, there he has a whole bunch of goats that they're probably going to stop their hearts from, or at least that was the idea. And like, you have Bob and Bill get together as Lynn's feeling depressed, like he doesn't know what to believe or do. And then, Bob and Bill put LSD into the powdered eggs, as well as, like, Bill didn't tell Bob he was going to do this, but he put it inside the drinking supply. And everybody gets high off their ass, and it's completely ridiculous. And to end it, because, it also ends with Bob believing more, and then he runs at a wall and he phases through it. One of the things they wanted to really do. So, again, I think that was done for effect, like, believe. But what I like to give you guys how it ended is when Bob's going over everything that happens, he's like, they never found Bill or Lynn, but that most believe he crashed, either because he was shot down by a missile, but also when you're that high off acid, how can you fly a helicopter?
Yeah, it was that scene where the whole military camp is high on LSD is solid gold. Watch the movie, even if just for that.
You're gonna hit the gate. You're gonna hit the gate.
And hey, if you're gonna have a hard time,
missed it.
If you're gonna have a hard time convincing the ladies in your family to watch it, just tell them there's a scene where George Clooney is naked and he's only wearing a hospital muumuu, and you get to see his ass.
That's true, and also the fact that it's George Clooney, because God knows women loved him. He was, sexiest man, 5 years in a row or something like that, I think.
Oh my God, I got an auntie in Phoenix who absolutely adores George Clooney.
Did she have all those magazines of sexiest man of the year?
Yes, she does.
Indeed. Okay. Well, and so that was basically a quick synopsis. Again, we sort of did break down the whole movie really quick, but hey, I didn't think we were going to, but still, there it is. I have to say, for favorite characters, the people that stood out to me in this movie, and again, I don't mean to say this one because he's the main character, but of course, George Clooney is, Lynn Cassidy, great performance, made every ridiculous thing he did believable, and he just over the top, but great performance by him. And of course, my second one, because the whole cast pretty much was phenomenal, but my second one that really stood out to me was definitely, again, Ewan McGregor, because again, the guy is a very talented actor. He's a very good actor. You almost give him any of these roles and he bats it out of the park, in my opinion. For anyone who says he's not a good actor, it's like, he definitely is, because you give him a lemon, he'll make lemonade.
And I can't believe I'm going to make this joke about this, but isn't it funny that Ewan McGregor in the Star Wars movie was the master with the disbelieving Padawan, and now he's the disbelieving Padawan to the master.
Believe me and Simony were making that joke all throughout the film, saying like, "You're a Jedi, you should know how to do this. Do force jump."
Help us, Obi-Woke Kenobi. You're the last simp.
Yeah, of course. How about you, Jarek? What characters stood out to you that you liked?
I have to go with the two you mentioned, man. George Clooney, again. You can't go wrong casting that asshole, and frankly, you can't go wrong casting Ewan McGregor. Unless, of course, you're doing the new Obi-Wan TV show,
yeah.
But the less said about that, the better.
That or I will say something here, because apologies, guys, I was never a big fan. I've sort of softened on it over the years, but was not a big fan of the Moulin Rouge movie. Like I said, I've softened on it. I don't hate it as much as I once did. It is enjoyable in parts. Ewan McGregor is probably one of the few things I like about it, but I still don't like it that much. So that's the one movie I pretty much dislike him in.
I hate to say it, but not the biggest Moulin Rouge fan either.
Yeah, the original is really good. I think a lot of people, pee on the thing was 55 or 57 whenever they made the original. The original was good.
As a kid, I got spoiled on Un Cabaret, Un Cabaret, Un Cabaret. I mean, come on, Liza Minnelli's a classic.
Never seen that either.
Oh, dude, we gotta show you Cabaret, man. That is everything Moulin Rouge wishes it could be.
All right, I will hold you to that, Jarek. And final thoughts again. I know we mentioned it a lot in our beginning. It is a good movie. I like it. It is a great dark comedy. I don't mind the obscurity. Simon even tells me, and me and Jarek will probably tell you now, don't go in this expecting what you think. Just go into it with an open mind and just see what you think. Because personally, a lot of the jokes in it made me laugh. I giggled. I laughed. I thought it was completely stupid, but yet also dumbfounded to know that this was an actual thing our government was doing in the 70s and 80s. And, it's like, go figure. And there's a really quick mention that I'll mention that the reason it got funded so much in the 80s is because Reagan liked what they were doing, and he was a fan of Star Wars.
Yep, he was a big fan of Star Wars and Star Trek.
Yep, and
That's why he's the best president I can think of.
And then, it's like you got all those different types of things. But again, it's a very fun movie. And again, the acting in it is great. And even the other main character actors, Stephen Root, Kevin Spacey, Jeff Bridges, they're all really good in it, and they do their roles well. For as short of a role that, I'll tell you guys really quick, he would be my dark horse favorite. Todd Nixon, Robert Patrick's little cameo role in the movie, I absolutely love, because there's a part where they're arguing about gas, and they actually start a firing thing with another security company.
Hey,
because a bike popped or the scooter popped, and it sounded like a gun, and they're like, and then Todd Nixon's like,
you know what the weirdest thing about this movie is? It's the absolute least creepy movie you'll ever see Kevin Spacey in.
That is also very true, because he is pretty creepy in some other films. And, anything that you want to add for final thoughts, Jarek, or did I say anything on that for you?
If you guys want a recommendation on where you can maybe hear more about this, or just other weird military shit in general, pop on to YouTube and check out the good man, Mr. Terrence Pop, at redonkulous.com, because I heard a story from him about a group of Army Rangers going to war with some Crips back in the day, and dear God, that was some crazy fucking shit. I didn't even know about that, and I was alive back then. So yeah, you want to hear some crazy ass fucking military shit, check out Mr. Pop.
Alright, well, there you guys have it, but this is the man who's Goats, and again, what do you guys think? Have any of you seen this movie? And if you haven't, just let us know what you think in the comments down below. Tell us how obscure, or, again, if it isn't your cup of tea, how stupid this movie is. Because like we said, I saw the thing on Rotten Tomatoes, and boy, this did not get a lot of good ratings. But hey, to each their own. But until then, this is 01 Tuboku, and
this is me tipping my hat to all the jackasses out there, Mr. Jarek.
Ooh, and we'll speak to you guys again soon, alright? Later, and deuces.
Deuces.